We're still on market failure in the labor market. We have two reasons why we have market failure in the labor market. We have geographical immobility of labor and we have occupational immobility of labor. In the previous class, we talked about geographical mobility of labor, which is the ability of individuals to be able to move from one location to another, from one country to another for job. That is mobility. But there's a market failure if there are barriers to the movement of individuals for work. So the inability of workers to move from one region to another for work is geographical immobility of labor, which is a market failure. Why is it a market failure? It's a market failure because it brings about a barrier to the supply of labor in that environment, right? Good. Now, today's focus is on occupational immobility of labor. But before we go into occupational immobility of labor, which is a market failure, first, what is occupational mobility of labor? Occupational mobility of labor refers to the ability of workers to be able to switch from one job to another, or they have the ability and willingness to switch from one job to another, or from one industry to another. That is what occupational mobility of labor is. Then what are the key aspects of occupational mobility of labor? The first one is ability to switch jobs. So your ability to switch jobs is all about your capacity to change. So if you have that capacity to change from one job to another, then you might be able you might have that occupational mobility. You could be a factory worker today, then switch to becoming software designer tomorrow. That is occupational mobility of labor. The second one is career progression. Now, when we talk about career progression, we're talking about occupational mobility that involves movement within the occupational hierarchy. So you have a role today, then your role today is an accountant, but tomorrow you become a financial director
Advisor, right.
or financial director or advisor. So that means you are moving up the hierarchy.
ladder.
Yeah, so that is also occupational mobility of labor. Because some people might not be able to move because they lack transferable skills or they lack the knowledge of certification. The third one is influence of skills. And when we talk about influence of skills, we're talking about having that transferable skills. So when you have transferable skills, it means you can adapt to different occupation, you can adapt to different industry. But when you don't have it, that means you are multi-skilled. When you are not multi-skilled, it becomes difficult for you to adapt to new environments, to new job description. Do you understand influence of skills here? So it's important for you to be multi-skilled. That is the point there. Then the last one is role of retraining. For role of retraining here, we're simply talking about government trying to organize, different retraining programs for workers. Because if government is able to do that, it improves their skills, and that could allow them to be multi-skilled. So these are aspects that bring about occupational mobility of labor. That's not where we are going. Where we are going is things that bring about the inability of workers to be able to switch from one job to another or from one industry to another, which brings about the barriers to supply of labor in that industry. That is occupational immobility of labor. That is where we are going, which is a market failure. I think it's clear. Yeah. So now we go to occupational immobility of labor. So we go to occupational immobility of labor. And we know occupational immobility of labor is the inability of workers to be able to switch from one job to another or from one industry to another. So if this happens, it brings about barriers to the supply of labor. And that is a market failure in the labor market. I think the point is clear. So here I wrote occupational immobility of labor. It refers to a worker's inability to switch between different jobs, due to lack of transferable skills, insufficient training, high educational cost, or mismatch between a worker's qualification and job requirements. So these are the reasons why we might have occupational immobility of labor. So we start with the first reason now. So we go to causes of occupational immobility of labor. The first one is skills gap. When I talk about skills gap, I wrote, workers may lack the necessary skills or qualification for a new job or industry, particularly when a job requires a highly specific and non-transferable skill sets. So people might not be able to switch from one job to another because they don't have transferable skills. They can't adapt to the new role. They can't adapt to the new industry. They can't adapt to the new sector. So this means it becomes uninteresting to them to switch because they don't have the required skills to be there. That is the first one, skills gap. I think it's clear. Yeah. The second one is information failure. There is information gap. people might not be able to switch from one job to another because they don't even have information that there's vacancy for that job. Or probably they don't even understand that there are training that would allow them to fit into that job position. That is information failure. Do you get it yet? So here I wrote, workers may not be aware of all available job opportunities or necessary training options, leading to difficulty finding suitable new roles. So they don't have information that there are new roles in place. Oh, I'm a teacher. Okay. I'm not supposed to be a teacher. Probably I'm supposed to be a banker, but I couldn't secure a banking job or a banking role. So I continue to be a teacher. There's information failure because I don't even know that there are vacancies for bankers. So because I don't know, then I won't be able to move on. I won't be able to switch job. That is occupational immobility of labor. Do you get that?
Yeah.
And also, if I want to be a banker, I have the ambition to be a banker, but I'm a teacher. So I need to be trained as a banker, yes or no? If I'm not aware that there are training programs that I could do to become, that I could, undertake to become a banker, if I'm not aware, that means there's information failure. And that brings about market failure in the labor market. I think information failure is clear.
Yeah.
The third one is training gaps. A lack of access to affordable or effective training schemes can prevent workers from acquiring the new skills needed to transition into different occupation. Training gaps. When you don't have access to training, training improves your skills. It improves your know-how. But when you don't have access to these training schemes, then you might not have the opportunity, or it might hinder your switching from one job to another. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
That's the third causes of occupational immobility. The fourth one is high cost of education and training. Education and training are expensive, yes or no?
Yes.
Good. So the time and financial cost of acquiring new qualifications can be a significant barrier for many workers. Oh, I really wish to become a banker, but I don't have that financial resources to go through the training, or it's going to take more time to become a banker. Do you understand? So that hinders my ability to switch from being a teacher to becoming a banker. You get that?
Yeah.
The next one is experience gaps. A prolonged period of unemployment can lead to outdated experience, making a worker less attractive to employers in a different field. So when you are unemployed for a long period of time, it makes you to become less attractive to employers. So they feel like you lack the updated skills to be part of the organization. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that's another reason why there might be barriers to supply of labor. So I want the job. I'm making myself available for the job, but there are hindrances, which is because I'm outdated. I don't have, presently I don't work. I'm not working. So I've not been working for the past 3 years. So employers do not see me as, interesting prospects for the vacancy.
Okay.
Is it clear? Then the next one is workers' preferences. Factors such as prestige, status, or personal interest can influence a worker's decision to stay in a particular occupation, even if alternatives exist. So there are alternatives, but I don't want to. I want people to see me as being a teacher. I don't want to do that job. So I'm not switching to that job, despite the fact that the job is interesting, despite the fact that the job is available and I can do it, but I don't want to do it because it doesn't befit my status. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that could be a reason why there's occupational immobility of labor. Any question about that?
No.
So that takes us to the consequences now. So go to the consequences of occupational immobility of labor. So occupational immobility of labor is a market failure. So if this happens, what are the consequences? What results do we get from occupational immobility of labor? The first one is structural unemployment. For structural unemployment, it simply means that there's unemployment based on the fact that certain sector within the economy is changing. So here I wrote, changes in the economic structure can leave workers unemployed if they cannot adapt their skills to new industries and jobs. So if there's structural unemployment, it simply means certain sector within the economy is in decline. And if they are in decline, it means there's going to be unemployment within those sectors, yes or no? So if you lack the skills or ability to switch, to adapt to new job, to new industry, then you might not be able to get a job. That is structural unemployment, which is also a market failure. Do you get the first point? Two, waste of resources. There's waste of resources because certain individuals who have the skills and knowledge are unable to move to that industry. So what are the reasons here? An inability to transfer skills lead to a misallocation of labor resources with valuable human capital remaining underutilized. If your skills are not transferable, it simply means you cannot adapt to new skills. You cannot adapt to new roles, to new job. That means you become a waste. You have the skills, but your skills do not give you a new role, which is available. That means there's a waste of labor resources. So the value you are supposed to add to the organization or to the industry is missing. That is waste of resources. Do you get it here? The third one, persistent labor shortages. There's labor shortage if demand for is more than supply of labor. So yeah, industries that require specific specialized skills may face difficulties finding qualified workers, even when the overall employment rate is low. Unemployment rate might be low, but it doesn't mean that you have given the right people the right job. If the right people, if they are right people, but no, if they are right job for wrong people, it still means there's still a market failure. He's supposed to be a teacher, but he's working in the bank or he's working in the agricultural sector. So a square peg in a round hole, that is a market failure. Do you get the point here? Mm-hmm. And the last one, wage inflation. As soon as there is occupational immobility of labor, it means supply of labor is reducing, yes or no? Yes. So if there is a fall in supply of labor, it simply means that employers have to attract employees with high wages, and that brings about wage inflation. So when there's wage inflation, it means there's going to be high cost of labor for firms or employers. So to attract workers into new occupations, firms may need to offer higher wages, potentially increasing their labor cost. So the consequence of occupational immobility of labor is employers will start attracting workers with higher wages, and this increases their cost of labor. So that's another consequence, because as soon as this happens, it might bring about cost push inflation, isn't it? Yeah. So these are consequences of occupational immobility of labor. So how do we solve occupational immobility of labor? To solve occupational immobility of labor, first we might think about, So now that we have this market failure, which is as a result of occupational immobility of labor, there are consequences. So we need to solve this problem. We can't it's a problem. Then every problem needs solution, yes or no? So what are the solutions to occupational immobility of labor? The first one is government incentive. And when we talk about government incentive here, we're simply talking about government providing incentives for workers for retraining or relocate, such as grants for education and training program. So government could give grants to workers for training and relocation. Note, relocation does not simply mean geographical occupation or geographical mobility of labor. Relocation might simply mean that, if with government grants, you might be able to move from one area to another where you have your own job. There are no banks here. There are banks over there, but there's no incentive to go over there. So if government is providing incentive for that, then that swifts your movement over there. Do you understand the first point here? The second one is with training and skill development. For training and skill development, I wrote, investing in schemes that help workers acquire transferable skills is crucial for adapting to a changing labor market. Transferable skills means you are multi-skilled. It means you can adapt to different working environments, to different working roles, to different industries. So being able to invest in transferable skills might allow workers to become occupationally mobile. Do you understand the second point here? The third one is firm relocation support. Government can offer incentives for firms to move to regions where there is a greater supply of unemployed or underemployed labor, creating new jobs. Creating new jobs in areas that there is high unemployment rate or underemployment means that there are new jobs available. So maybe I'm doing this job because there's no other jobs available here. But creating new job might allow me to switch to that job because it's the kind of job I'm supposed to do. So that is firm relocation support, which can be done through government. That also increases occupational mobility of labor. And the last one which is always going to be the first information gap. So we already know that with information failure or information gap, it brings about market failure, either in the market system or either in the labor market or the product market. There's always going to be a market failure due to asymmetric information. So if there's always going to be market failure due to asymmetric information should flow. Dissemination of information could increase supply of labor, could reduce the barriers to supply of labor. So here, improved information flow. Better dissemination of information about job vacancies and training opportunities can help workers make informed decisions about their careers. So if workers know that there are vacancies available, then they might be able to make decisions about moving to switching from one job to another. If they understand or if they have information that there are training programs that could elevate their career path, they would go for it. But because they lack the information, they don't know. So that makes supply of labor to always reduce. So these barriers to supply of labor, they can only be solved with government incentive, relocation incentive, information, dissemination of information. So that ends market failure in the labor market. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay.